I'm Daniel, 29 years old, and this story starts with a dinner reservation I made for the people I thought would be proud of me. Not strangers, not coworkers, my family. I had just landed a job offer that frankly still doesn't feel real. $200,000 a year, full benefits, a relocation package, the whole deal. After years of working temp gigs, picking up freelance coding work wherever I could, sleeping on a mattress in a shoebox apartment with peeling paint and a window that didn't close all the way, I had finally made it. I wasn't looking to be celebrated like royalty or anything. I just thought, maybe this would be the moment my parents looked at me and said, "We're proud." That my sister, Rachel, would let go of whatever petty resentment she'd been holding since we were kids. That for once, I'd sit at a family dinner and not feel like an outsider trying to prove I belonged. So I booked a private dining room at a beautiful little Italian restaurant downtown. White linen tablecloths, candlelight, and a three-course menu. I even called ahead to make sure my mom's dietary restrictions were accommodated. I paid for everything up front. I didn't want a single reason for anyone to say they were doing me a favor by showing up. Everyone arrived on time. That alone felt like a small miracle. My mom wore a blazer like she was expecting a business meeting, and my dad looked mildly confused by all the fanfare. Rachel showed up in designer heels and a dress that probably cost more than my first car, dragging along her boyfriend Nate, a guy with a half-decent smile and the emotional range of a microwave. We ordered. We laughed. It was fine at first, stiff, but civil. Then, somewhere between the risotto and the tiramisu, I stood up to thank them for coming. I had a little speech prepared. Nothing corny, just something like, "Thanks for believing in me when things were rough." I never got to say it. My mom clinked her wine glass. She clinked it 3 times, ding, 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 like she was the host of the night. Then she smiled, tilted her glass toward Rachel, and said, "We all know your sister deserved it more, but life isn't fair." There was this awful pause, just long enough for me to think, wait, did I hear that right? My Aunt Joan, who wasn't even supposed to be there but tagged along because she happened to be in town, burst out laughing. One of those forced, high-pitched laughs people use when they're trying to look supportive but don't really know what they're laughing at. My dad just looked down at his plate like the meatballs had suddenly become fascinating. And Rachel? She smirked. That slow, smug kind of smirk that says, "Finally." Finally, someone said it out loud. I stood there, silent, still holding my glass. You know that moment where time stretches? Where you're mentally flipping through 1,000 possible reactions, but your body just freezes? That was me. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just stunned. I had rehearsed this moment in my head so many times. But in all those versions, I was the one surprising them, not the other way around. I managed a weak laugh, then sat back down. The server brought out dessert. The conversation shifted, but I wasn't listening anymore. I kept looking at the envelopes in my jacket pocket. See, I hadn't just brought them here to celebrate. I'd planned to give each of them something meaningful. I'd spent the last week calculating the exact amounts. My mom and dad had been in debt for years, constantly stressed about the mortgage and car payments. I was going to pay off both. Quietly. No big announcement, no lecture, just a gesture. My aunt. I was going to pay off the medical bill she kept complaining about. Rachel? Even after all the things she's done, the backhanded comments, the years of one-upping me, the way she once told her friends I was basically adopted, I was going to write her a check to help cover her grad school loans. Because I believed that maybe, just maybe, this moment could fix something, heal a few scars. And now? Now I was watching her swirl her wine and whisper something to Nate while smirking in my direction. Like I was the punchline to a joke I didn't get to hear. My mom kept talking. Something about how Rachel was always the star, how she had the discipline and the presence for corporate life. How I was more of a creative soul, her favorite way of saying I didn't meet her expectations. I watched her mouth move, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to win her over. I didn't want to explain or justify or make her understand me. I was just done. I stood up again. This time, they noticed. My dad looked up. Rachel raised an eyebrow. My mom gave me a polite little smile like she thought I was about to give my toast now. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelopes. They weren't labeled, but I knew which was which. I looked at each of them. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "Life isn't fair." Then I held up the envelopes for a second. Just long enough for the flicker of curiosity to pass across their faces. Just long enough for Rachel to actually lean forward slightly, eyes narrowing. Especially, I continued, when I was planning to pay off everyone's debts until now. My mom blinked. Rachel's smirk vanished. My aunt froze mid-bite. I slid the envelopes back into my pocket, turned around, and walked out of the restaurant without another word. I heard someone call my name, maybe my dad, maybe even Nate, but I didn't stop. And just as I reached the door, I heard it. Rachel screaming. Wait, what? Are you serious right now? Daniel. I kept walking. Out into the cool night air. Past the valet. Down the block where the streetlights didn't buzz like judgmental eyes. My phone started buzzing, vibrating nonstop like it had something urgent to tell me. I turned it off. That was 2 hours ago. I'm sitting at a quiet little bar now. I've had the same glass of bourbon in front of me this whole time. Untouched. Just watching the ice melt while I process everything that just happened. And part of me wonders, did I go too far? But another part, a louder, calmer part, knows this was the first time I actually stood up for myself. And they have no idea what's coming next. I sat there at the bar a little longer, the condensation from the bourbon glass dripping onto my fingertips. I wasn't angry in the way I expected. I wasn't shaking or plotting or crying into a drink like some movie cliché. I felt hollow. The kind of hollow you feel after finally letting go of something heavy you've carried for too long. It wasn't just tonight. It was everything. Every ignored phone call. Every time they asked Rachel how school was going, but forgot I even graduated. Every family photo where I was conveniently cropped out or standing just far enough to the side to make it feel like an accident. And tonight had just been the final stamp on a long overdue truth. I was never going to be enough for them. Not because I wasn't successful or kind or generous, but because they had decided long ago that I didn't fit their narrative. I checked my phone. 15 missed calls. 8 voicemails. A dozen texts, mostly from Rachel. Rachel texted, "What is wrong with you? This isn't funny. Come back and explain yourself. You were going to give us money, and now you're being dramatic? Grow up." My mom had sent one too. Short. Cold. "You embarrassed the entire family. After everything we did for you." I almost laughed at that one. Everything they did for me? Like what? Mocking me for wanting to study computer science instead of business? Like when they made me sleep on the couch during Rachel's graduation party because we only had room for one guest room, and obviously it had to be for her friends? Or was it when they forgot my birthday 3 years in a row, and then tried to blame me for not reminding them? The only message that didn't sting was the one from my dad. "Call me when you're ready." I get it. I didn't know what it was, but for the first time in years, I thought maybe there was still someone in that house who had doubts. Someone who had learned to keep his head down to survive the emotional storm that was my mom and sister. But I wasn't ready to talk to him yet. I left the bar and walked through the city. It was late enough that the sidewalks were quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own thoughts. And for once, I wasn't running from them. I was facing them head on. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I had gone out of my way to be kind. I had worked for years, through rejections, anxiety, self-doubt, building a life I was finally proud of. And the moment I tried to share it with them, they treated it like a mistake that happened to the wrong sibling. I walked until I ended up at my apartment, the one I had just put a deposit down on. A 2-bedroom loft with tall windows and exposed brick, the kind of place I never thought I'd afford. I stood in the entryway for a moment and took a breath. Then I pulled out the envelopes again. Thick paper. Quality stuff. I had written personal notes in each one, too. Notes they'd never get to read now. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started typing. Not to them, no. That bridge was burned, and the smoke was still fresh in my lungs. No, this was something different. I opened a spreadsheet. Labeled it, "Debt Forgiveness, New Recipients." I deleted the old names. Then I thought for a second and smiled. And I made new ones. See, I work in tech now. Specifically for a company that partners with nonprofits to provide emergency assistance through vetted digital grants. The kind that helps pay off medical bills, tuition, rent, and yes, personal debt. I had access to programs and partners that I never told my family about because I knew the second I did, they'd want to exploit them. And now? Now I was going to use that access. But not for them. I remembered a barista at the coffee shop I used to work at. She was 19, working 2 jobs, and supporting her little brother because their mom disappeared and their dad was in rehab. I remembered an old neighbor who used to bring me casseroles when I was broke and freelancing, who once cried in the hallway because she couldn't afford her medication. I remembered my old high school math teacher who stayed late to tutor me, even though I was awkward and stuttered and barely passed algebra. I found them online. Quietly, discreetly. I started small. An anonymous $2,000 payment to my neighbor's pharmacy account. A check labeled Education Support Fund sent to my old barista friend's apartment, covering 4 months of rent. I contacted my teacher. She didn't even remember me at first and offered to set up a classroom tech grant in her name. She cried. I cried too, honestly. None of them knew what I had done exactly. And that was the point. Because here's the thing. If I was going to be generous, I wanted to give to people who saw me, who respected me, who would never raise a glass and say someone else deserved my success more. It's been 4 days now. I haven't heard from Rachel again, though she did post some vague quote on Instagram about fake family and betrayal. My mom tried calling once more. I didn't pick up. My dad sent a longer message, asking if we could meet. I'm thinking about it. Maybe. But tonight, I'm hosting another dinner. This time, with people who don't share my blood, but who showed up when I needed them most. Friends, mentors, colleagues, even my old landlord who let me delay rent more times than I can count. There won't be envelopes this time. Just seats at the table, real seats, for people who earn them. And if my phone rings during dinner, I'll let it. Because for once, they can be the ones waiting for a callback that never comes. The dinner was set for 7 p.m., and by 6:30, people were already arriving. No designer heels, no family power games, no forced smiles, just real laughter, real conversation, and people I genuinely wanted to see. I hadn't realized how starved I'd been for that kind of company. People who didn't keep score, didn't treat kindness like a currency to trade. They just showed up. And that alone made this dinner feel like home in a way my family never did. There was Maya, my old co-worker from the hardware store, who used to sneak me leftover donuts when I skipped lunch. Steve, my first freelance client who gave me a shot when all I had was a beat-up laptop and a shaky resume. Even Nora, my ex from years ago, came. We'd stayed friends, and she always believed I was going to make it long before I did. And Mr. Patel, my high school chemistry teacher, who once told me I wasn't bad at math. I just needed someone to explain it differently. I had planned to keep things casual, just a chill night with good food and better people. But halfway through dinner, Nora stood up with a wine glass and said, "All right, since your mom already made a toast this week, I think we need a real one." The room chuckled. I froze for a second. Part of me still flinched at the mention of that dinner. But I smiled and nodded for her to continue. "To Daniel," she said, "who never gave up, who kept his head down when people tried to keep him down, and who decided, finally, to stop shrinking just to make other people comfortable. Cheers." They all clinked their glasses. I blinked hard. I wasn't used to being the center of a moment that didn't come with strings attached. When the applause died down, I stood up, not for a toast, just to say something real. I was going to pay off my family's debts, I said. That's why I invited them to dinner. Not because they earned it, but because I thought maybe they'd see me differently if I gave enough. The room was silent now. The mood was listening, not judging. But when I realized they never would, that they had already decided who I was before I even walked into the room, I realized something else too. I was trying to buy peace with people who never even tried to understand me. I looked around at the faces in front of me. People who hadn't flinched when I failed, who didn't disappear when I had nothing. "I'm done trying to convince people to love me," I said, "especially when I'm surrounded by people who already do." Applause again. Louder. Not polite clapping, the kind you give when something lands exactly right. And yet, as the night wound down, I checked my phone one more time. A new message. Mom texted, "You're being unfair. Rachel was just joking. We didn't mean anything by it. Don't throw away family over one comment." Then another. Rachel texted, "Okay, I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt, but can we just move past this now? You're seriously acting like a child." That one made me sit back and exhale sharply through my nose. I was acting like a child. Rachel, who once forged my signature in high school to get out of a summer internship and blamed me when she got caught. Rachel, who told her boyfriend I was technically unemployed, even when I was running my own freelance business. Rachel, who borrowed money 5 separate times with promises to Venmo me back that somehow always got forgotten. She had never once, not once, said thank you. Not for rides. Not for covering bills. Not even for the time I vouched for her when she was caught lying about a job interview she never went to. And now, with the money gone, with the opportunity vanished, now she wanted to talk? I put my phone down. Then, like some cruel cosmic joke, it rang. Dad. I hesitated. For him, I still had a sliver of softness. He was never vocal, never a knight in shining armor, but he never actively tried to hurt me either. He just went along, a quiet bystander in a storm that never stopped. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the green button. Then I answered. Hey, I said. His voice was soft, like he already knew I might hang up. Daniel, I know you don't want to hear it, but I just want to say I'm sorry. I didn't speak. Let the silence carry its weight. I should have said something when your mom made that comment, he continued. I knew it was wrong. I've learned to keep the peace. That's not an excuse. I just want you to know it wasn't fair. And it's not the first time. You didn't deserve that. It hit harder than I expected. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first acknowledgement I'd gotten. The first sentence where someone in that family used sorry and you didn't deserve that in the same breath. I know this might not mean much now, he added, but I saw the envelopes. I figured it out. I saw how hurt you were when you walked out. And I think it was the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. I closed my eyes. You don't have to forgive anyone, he said. You don't even have to talk to me again. I just wanted to tell you. I get it now. I took a long breath. Thank you, I said. I mean it. He didn't push. Didn't ask me to come over. Didn't defend anyone else. Just said, take care of yourself, and hung up. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, not all of the bridges had to stay burned. But I also knew one thing for sure. The era of me begging to be seen was over, and I hadn't even opened the last envelope yet. 3 days passed. I didn't respond to Rachel. I didn't respond to Mom. I let the guilt-laced messages pile up like unopened junk mail. Each one got a little more frantic, a little more manipulative. My personal favorite was when Rachel messaged, "This is exactly why no one takes you seriously. You hold grudges like a toddler. Enjoy your little tech job. Hope it fills the hole where your family should be." She must have thought that would sting. What she didn't realize is that for the first time in my life, the hole wasn't there anymore. I went to work, helped finalize a grant proposal, and sent out 2 more anonymous donations under the radar. One to a single mom who used to volunteer at my old co-working space. She'd posted online about being months behind on rent. Another to a guy I met once at a tech conference who'd gotten laid off and was crowdfunding for surgery. He'd never know it was me, but I didn't need credit. I just needed to feel like I was building something better than what I came from. Then I remembered the final envelope. It had been sitting in my desk drawer, untouched. This one didn't have a check inside. No cash, no transfer slip. It was the letter I had written to myself. I know, it sounds stupid, but I'd written it the night before the dinner. I was scared I'd chicken out, scared I'd fall back into that old pattern of apologizing just to keep the peace. So I wrote a letter. To myself. As a reminder of who I was becoming, who I wanted to be. I pulled it out and unfolded it slowly. Daniel, if you're reading this after the dinner, and things went the way I think they might, don't spiral. Don't convince yourself you were wrong for hoping, or soft for getting hurt. You're not crazy. You saw the best in people who didn't deserve it, and that's not a weakness. It's proof that you're still human. But don't you dare go back to shrinking. You've worked too hard, too long, for too little. This success, it's yours. Not a gift. Not luck. Not a fluke. Yours. And if they can't love you unless you fail, then they were never rooting for you. Just waiting for proof that they were right about you. So walk away. Keep walking. You don't owe anyone the light you had to build from scratch. Be proud. Be loud. Be done. D. I folded it back up and smiled. Not the sad, tired smile I was used to giving when people let me down. This one felt different. This one felt final. I got up, walked out onto my balcony, and watched the city buzz beneath me. I thought about the last few years, the ramen dinners, the interviews I bombed, the temp jobs where I wore a fake name tag just so I wouldn't be recognized by people from high school. I thought about the night I pulled an all-nighter just to land a freelance gig that paid $50. I thought about how none of them, none, ever asked me how I was holding up during those times. And yet, when I finally found air after nearly drowning for years, they scoffed like I stole someone else's oxygen. That's when I decided. No more second chances. That weekend, I blocked Rachel. Deleted my mom's number. I didn't send a dramatic text, didn't write a monologue. I just cut the cord, quietly, fully. And it was like an anchor I didn't know I was dragging suddenly vanished. I changed my emergency contact from Mom to Maya. I called my bank and removed my mom from the secondary access she forgot I gave her when I was in college. Yeah, she had access. And no, she never once said thank you. I closed the old joint savings account that still had my name on it, transferred the small balance into a fund for small business grants, the kind of fund that would never go to people like Rachel, but maybe to someone like me 5 years ago. And then, because I believe in real closure, I mailed a letter. One letter. To my dad. It read, "Dad, thank you for calling. And for finally saying something. That meant more than you know. I'm not coming home. Not for dinner. Not for holidays. Not for birthdays or weddings or anything in between. I wish things were different. But I'm not going to bend myself in half to be accepted by people who break me just to keep their own image intact. You saw what they did. And I know you've been silent for a long time. Maybe out of fear or habit or love. But silence is still a choice. I hope someday you choose differently. And if you do, I'll be here. But until then, I'm moving on. Not out of anger, out of peace. You know where to find me. Love, Daniel." I didn't expect a reply. I still don't. But that's the thing about growing. It's not about getting a reaction. It's about deciding you're done performing for people who never clapped in the first place. 2 months passed. The holidays came and went. I spent them with Nora and Steve and Maya and a few others. We ordered Chinese food and played board games in pajamas. No speeches, no clinking glasses, no backhanded comments. Just warmth. One morning in late January, I got a letter, handwritten, from my dad. It was short. "Daniel, I left. I'm renting a small place across town. I'm not expecting anything. Just wanted you to know. You were right. I should have spoken up a long time ago. If you ever want to meet for coffee, I'd love to hear more about the work you're doing. Proud of you. Dad." That was the moment I finally let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding since I was 15. I met him that weekend. We talked for 3 hours. We didn't talk about Mom, or Rachel, or the dinner. We talked about hiking, about movies, about what it felt like to grow up in a house where speaking up came with consequences. And for the first time, I felt like I was speaking to a man, not a ghost hiding behind the word father. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just asked, "What's next?" And I told him, "I'm launching a fund for underrepresented tech students. I'm mentoring 3 kids from my old high school. And I'm writing a book about failure and shame and choosing to cut your own family out when they become the very weight that keeps you from rising. It's not revenge. It's resurrection. And for the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving. I'm thriving. No more dinners to win people over. No more clinking glasses from people who never wanted me to succeed. No more walking into rooms hoping they'll see me. Because I see me now. And that's more than enough.